What's difficult indeed about Paul Monet's Gardenias? Well, you guys have been battling with it already. One of the biggest and most striking difficulties for anybody who's going to read it is, where do you breathe? Why is this text just written as in one long run-on sentence, as are all of the other 17 elegies collected in Monet's Love Alone, 18 elegies for Raj? And it's kind of a question. You know, pain is not a flower, pain is a root, and its work is underground, where the moldering precedes the bones of all our joy, winded and rain, and nothing grows. A whole life's love that longed to be an orchard, fortune lie like an onion, secret sound of the mind, pain, the heart, roots! You tumble and trip and turn as you are reading through these sentences, as you do any time you're all freaked out. What happens when you're driving down the street and you're on I-95 and you're coming home and all of a sudden somebody whirs out in front of you and you go off and you pull over on the side of the road and you call, oh my God, I can't believe what just happened. I was just driving down the road and oh, by the way, do you have any milk? And blah, 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 blah. Did you walk the dog? And oh, I got you, and I'll be home late because blah, 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 blah. Adrenaline surges with the height of the intense feeling, and we are overcome, and we call, and we ramble, and our brain goes blah, 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 as does this text. So we've talked a lot about how we hear and see and look for intensity in love literature, and here's a new way of doing it. One of the difficulties of this text is sort of the run-on tumble of no punctuation, of no clear thoughts tumbling one after the other, is one of the ways that the poem achieves this sense of emotional intensity. And it's really intense. It's a tense recollection. It's heavy stuff. When I read through it, it's pretty sad. I mean, an elegy, this is a poem to a dead person. And what on earth happens when our heart of hearts, our love of love passes? It's intense. And in the gay community, this isn't just intense love, but this is intense same-sex love. And it's intense love that's being professed and proclaimed and shouted in the midst of an international health crisis. In the midst of a community being decimated, these beautiful, young, handsome, talented men dying. So yeah, it's an intense time, and it is very sad, and it should be very sad. Another strange difficulty in this text is, please notice, there's nothing in the text. If you weren't aware that Raj was Roger Horowitz and this is a love poem between two guys, I don't think that's a strange assumption. There's nothing really in the poem that's banging over our head in sort of a same-sex eroticism. It's nothing like the Song of Songs. There's no body parts. There's no looking. There's no lovemaking. There's no physical arousal in this text. There's just a lot of heart and a lot of feeling. So it wouldn't be odd at all for us to think, oh, this is a guy writing to his wife. This is a woman writing to the man that she loved. If your brain or our brains go into imagining a mixed sex couple, a heterosexual love affair, that's not surprising. And the reason it's not surprising is because we live in what is referred to as a heteronormative society, which is simply a big, long, fancy word for meaning that in our culture, heterosexuality is the norm. And that is the case, right? Most people are straight. Most people are attracted to people of the opposite sex. But not everybody. There are gay, homosexual couples. There's bi couples. There's everything on the LGBTQNA a spectrum as being shared, explored, understood. But nevertheless, regardless of where you or I might be on the orientation scale, we're still raised in a culture and in a tradition that's heteronormative. Most of us have male and female parents. The representations on TV, in movies that we see of people falling in love is, with very few exceptions, images of men falling in love with women and women with men. So heteronormative society doesn't mean anything about our personal preferences, but it does mean a lot about the culture and, for Monette, the tradition that we come from. So when we talk about traditions, we're a heteronormative culture, but the Western Romantic tradition, literary tradition, is also heteronormative. And so when I talk about the Western Romantic literary tradition, I'm talking about the great books. In Homer's Iliad, it is Helen of Troy and Paris who fall in love. In the Roman de la Rose, it's King Arthur and Guinevere and Lancelot. It may be a love triangle, but it's still a heterosexual love triangle. In Dante, who does Paula kiss? Who does Francesca kiss? Paolo. It's a woman and a man. And again, every fairy tale we hear, every romance story that we tell, all of the books that inform, that are passed down, all of the literary allusions that we have in this tradition are heteronormative. All of the literary allusions. And you remember we talked about these in Dante. A literary allusion is a reference to an outside or previous literary work. And when we include an allusion in our writing, we are connecting it. We are asking readers to think about the book that's referenced. We're asking readers to think about that connection, to get some of its authority or some of its imagery or some of its weight and seriousness. We are being asked with that literary allusion to bring that with us as we read this new work. So one of the difficulties of this text isn't just the run-on intensity, but it's a difficulty to think about how is the author, who is very learned and very loving of the English literary tradition, how does he both allude to this tradition as a gay man? His great love is with a man. His great love, and he wants to, at some level, at this difficult moment, he wants to sort of make a claim for the power, the significance, the reality, the legitimacy of his love for Raj. So we have these interesting literary allusions, and you may not know them. They're difficult. You'd only know them if you were well read in the tradition. One of these traditions, one of these allusions, is the Vale of Arcady. What is this, the Vale of Arcady? Well, I know, you don't, that the Vale Arcady is a reference to a great epic novel called The Faerie Queene, written by Edmund Spenser at the height of Elizabethan epic poetry. So this is a Vale of Arcady in Spenser's Faerie Queene, is another reference to an even older tradition, the great poet Virgil. You remember Virgil from Dante's Guide. Virgil was a Latin poet. He wrote in the 1st century in Rome, and he wrote a series of poems called the Georgics, which were all about this beautiful, beautiful land, this make-believe land called Arcadia that was kind of a pagan version of paradise. Arcadia was an idealized pastoral fantasy of milk and honey and happy shepherds and flute music and heavenly sunshine, sort of the My Little Pony of first century Rome. Oh, friends and friends and friends. So Arcadia is a fictionalized perfect place. It's like the Garden of Eden or paradise or heaven, a veil. The place was like heaven to us, is what that allusion means. But when he uses Vale of Arcady, he's tying himself to the heavenly poetry of Great Britain, and he's tying himself to the heavenly idealized fiction of Virgil's Georgics. This poem is in that line of succession. This poem is a grandchild of those other literary idealized places. Another literary allusion in this text is Thomas Hardy. What is this? Thomas Hardy? What is this? What is this? The Twilight Zone? Now you may know the Twilight Zone. That's a 1950s television show where miraculous, strange, supernatural, eerie things happened. Thomas Hardy is a 19th century British scholar, British writer. He wrote wonderful, great fiction, but in the fiction of Thomas Hardy, there was always romance and there was always eroticism and the heavens. You know, when the two lovers kissed, when the man and the woman lovers kissed, there was thunder and rainbows and the heavens responded. Every romantic consummation, every, the world and the heavens responded as if romance and the heavens were in communication. So you get, while that, right? Here we have all this nature, this beautiful idealized garden, Vale of Arcady. We have this intense emotional connection expressed through the garden. Thomas Hardy, these gardenias, 3 gardenias, keep blooming late into October, long after they should, as if the heavens were making the gardenia bloom. We have this spectacular reference. So we have a man with these references, these literary allusions, making all kinds of connections, asking, inviting us to think about how these inform, how these echo the power and the thematic and the symbolic power within the story. We also have a couple other allusions, other language that pops out to me that may not pop out to you. We have Billie Holiday, the great blues jazz singer that has heavy, sad, emotionally charged music. A perfect reference to a jazz music tradition echoing the intense sadness of the poem. But we have this couple other lines I want to point. But we were never gardeners, were we? More yard books, $3 an hour, than rose queens. We were more yard boys, $3 an hour, than rose queens. So what that means is they were just workers. They were like yard boys with just the dumb guys you hire to pull the brush out, or in our case, we've got guys cutting down lumber in our backyard. You might hear. We were more gardeners, $3 an hour, than rose queens. But what's a rose queen? What's a queen? A queen is an effeminate man. A queen is a man in drag. A queen is drag culture. A rose queen would be within gay slang, would be, those guys who are way too into her gardens. Ooh, always talking about their latest species. To be a queen is to be over the top. So a rose queen, to a gay man, to a gay ear, has a specific resonance. We weren't over the top with our garden. And then we have this, if I could have been there, on Boulevard Saint-Germain. Now, you may not know the street in Paris, Boulevard Saint-Germain, but if you're a gay dude, you know Boulevard Saint-Germain. Guess what's on the boulevard? It's the gayest street in Paris. It's the heart of of the gay arts district. There's a lot of cruising, a lot of flirting, a lot of gay and bohemian people. If I could have been there in our little gay ghetto with you back in Paris in the day. So you may not know that reference, but if you're in the culture, if you participate, you know the insider's code, the illusions that that gay people might be aware of, might know, might sense, that those who are not part of that community wouldn't. I even say gay community, I say gay community of a certain age and station, right? These guys are, I was born in the 60s, they were born in the 40s. So these guys are, 20 years older than I am. They're just, almost my generation, but a little bit older. Vale of Arcady, Rose Queens, Boulevard Saint-Germain. And then we have these other weird, I brought in the last gardenia, fourth day, yellow and smutty. Well, smutty just means dirt. But smut is also a name for pornographic or erotic literature. Girly magazines back in the day, that was considered, a smut would be dirty, Playboy foldouts and so on and so forth, dirty magazines. So fourth day yellow and smutty. Smutty means dirty, but smutty also means erotic or pornographic. But for all the spunk of those three gardenias, spunk, what a word. Spunk means energy, for all the energy, for all the power, the pop of those three gardenias. But spunk is also a slang word for ejaculate. So notice, this isn't body parts. This isn't breasts like twin gazelles, and this isn't beautiful pomegranate cheeks or goat's hair. This isn't body part by body part. This is thin, is heavily veiled, heavily coded, insider's code. So we have a bunch of that. If you're part of the community, you might recognize, but if you're not part of the community, you wouldn't know. So here's three big difficulties about gardenias. One is the run-on intensity of it that challenges us to find the thoughts, the chunks. The second is the density of literary allusions that are connecting it to an outside tradition that's heteronormative. And three is this insider's code, that there could be within a poem, within a tradition, things that those in the know get, but those in the know might not even acknowledge or see. All right, that's an awful lot of difficulty. We'll come back in a second to some more interestings.